Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Music Makers with Break Time. My name is John Henry Soto, and today we're going to be talking about music from the 40s. We've done the 20s, the 30s, and today we're going to do the 40s. And we're
Oh
doing the
yeah.
50s, 60s, yeah, all the way until we get until present time. And maybe we'll even go into the future a couple of decades
Ooh.
because I think we
Ooh.
have that kind of power.
I
Ladies
like
and
That's
gentlemen,
fresh, man.
please welcome two members of Break Time, Sean and Tommy.
Yeah.
They call me
Sure.
Mr. Funky Fresh. No, they don't. But
I thought I would do the start like the way I do the other shows,
yeah,
so it's not just us all four. Give it a little bit of an introduction. Cool
good
guys. So thank
evening,
you very much.
everybody.
Yes. Good evening. Good
Good
evening.
evening.
And we've been having some fun with these conversations. I've been learning a lot. I've been appreciating the fact that you guys come with the goods and stuff. I unfortunately haven't done a whole lot of research, except I know a lot about Sinatra, and that's one of the things that I'll be engaging
Oh
on
yeah.
and talking about. Um, and I'll talk about when it's my turn to talk. But I thought that one of the things we would do is we would go around and give like a little synopsis first on what we're going to talk about and what we're going to cover and stuff, and then come back around again and then just hit it with the news. So kind of do a first round thing, which
Mhm.
I'm gonna just I'll start because I'm really gonna talk about Sinatra's influence on just culture, and pretty much everything. The first, really the first superstar, you know, um, to really hit from anywhere. He's from Jersey, Hoboken and stuff. So I thought that'd be a kind of cool thing to talk about. So that's what I'm gonna be talking about. Tommy, what are you bringing to the table?
To this table, I'm bringing some music, man, because it's in
Hello.
my name, Tommy the Music Man. Hey, John,
Nice.
or whoever that
Yeah,
was. Okay,
yeah. This is
You're just saying
a
hi to
com-
John,
this
but
Facebook user. So I don't know. It's
it's
just
not
says on my
showing me
screen.
who it is. Who is
Yeah,
this?
it's just
we
this
want to
Facebook
know.
user. I don't know. It's weird.
We want to
Usually the
know.
name pops up. Anyway,
Who are you?
I'm bringing some. Well, actually, for the most part, Christmas music. So if you celebrate Christmas in July, this show's for you because we
Wow.
got a
We're
lot of Christmas songs that came from the 40s. Believe it or not.
Oh, very interesting. I did not know that. Okay.
One of which we'll get
Well,
to.
No, no,
What's
we'll get
most
to it.
important?
we'll talk about it
Not
when we
gonna
get
say it yet. Not gonna say it
all
yet
right.
because you'll
Okay.
you'll know it. But and
And
continue onward.
Mr. Break Time, what's up?
All right.
Tell
To
us
this
what's up.
conversational potluck, I will bring the sociopolitical analysis of what was going on during the 40s, and in response, like music's development side by side. That's going to be my contribution to this conversational potluck that we call the Music Makers, hosted by the one and only John Henry Soto, the hardest working talk show host in the business today, and probably the hardest working streamer as well. Thank you very much for having us on your show, John. And as
Thank you.
always, with break time, it's a great time.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Having been on other platforms now that I've been actually kind of moving away from certain other platforms, I see that I'm not that the people go live for like 8, 9, 10 hours a day. It's like unheard of. It's some what's going on in the world right now is insanity. But they're making actually a really good living doing it too. So I was like, very interesting. I'm actually learning a lot about being able to communicate, and I think that that's one of the topics that always kind of comes into the conversation, no matter who I'm talking to, is this format. And going talking about music from the 40s now today. We've come a long way to be able to actually have this conversation in completely different rooms on different places. I've had conversations with people in very far away, and it just shows you where we are, and the future looks pretty cool and pretty interesting. So I wanted just to say a few things about Sinatra. I love Sinatra. And I'm not going to go into too many
Who doesn't?
detail specific stuff. I mean, I can go online and read all the statistical stuff on Sinatra. And I think everybody has heard so much about his life and his impact on. But one of the things that I've actually always respected about Sinatra, by the way, Sinatra was like always famous. When he hit, there was never a lull. There wasn't like a struggle. He like literally hit, right? I think he hit probably more when he was with the Tommy Dorsey band. I think that was like
Mm.
the his big kind of break and stuff. And then he wanted to leave that band and stuff. And he had a little bit of a rough time between the Dorsey years, which was pretty awesome, and then going solo. He didn't think he could do that, so he had. But when I say a small time, I'm talking about maybe like a couple of weeks or something. It was like maybe a month, and I think they announced the show at the Paramount in New York, and it was sold out. There was a line around, it was just for Sinatra, and then he realized, oh, okay, I guess I don't need anyone. I can do this on my own. But Sinatra was one of these guys that also kept his integrity on the style of music that he performed. A lot of artists now, they try to stay with the times and try to keep certain elements of their sound, but they try to do something a little bit more contemporary. And he was able to just stick to that style, master it, and always be successful doing that style and inspiring people like Michael Bublé and those Michael Feinstein, and I guess all the Michaels, um, and just a lot of different artists that continued that style of music. Tony Bennett, who's almost 100, still
Yes.
doing it.
Mm.
From
Um,
Astoria.
from Astoria, that's right. So he was definitely influenced by Sinatra, and Sinatra called Tony Bennett the greatest singer ever. Like he's like his favorite singer was like Tony Bennett. So that was like a big deal for Tony, obviously, kind of getting the blessing from him. Um, but I think his impact, because it was so musically, we're talking about the music, obviously. He was very he wasn't a tough guy, but he enjoyed the tough environment. He wasn't like the guy that he just enjoyed being able to hang around tough guys. Even though he came off sometimes like a tough guy, and he was a pretty serious guy when
The
you
Rat
see him.
Pack.
Yeah, the Rat Pack, and you see the interviews. But he was also like a very very loving guy. Like from the stories you hear from people, and he was a tough guy. And I think his biggest weakness was probably, I would say, probably women, I guess. Early in the early days, I would say that just that was probably for a lot of those guys, Dean Martin and Sammy Davis and all those guys. Um, but that was just part of that culture. Also, it was just a different time, and things were that's just the way they were. But his music really impacted the world and influenced just so many other people, and it was very unique because it seemed that it came out of it's America created jazz. Like it literally was born here. Like I mean, we have the African sounds, and we have the blues coming from from the black sound coming from the South, and that blues style. But then jazz was really a combination of all those things mixing in with what was here, and this beautiful music. Jazz was really developed here, and our great composers that we have, Count Basie and Duke Ellington and
Gershwin.
and Gershwin, and even Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie was like an amazing player, but he was also an amazing musician. Just like his musicianship was just remarkable. So all these guys really created this amazing thing, and Sinatra was sort of like you know um, the guy that came on and took it all and put it into this amazing package and presented it where it was accepted. It was accepted for to have a white colored guy, Italian guy, go out there and do this kind of music with all influenced and infused with so much black sounds and black inspirations and stuff. And it really he just took care of it. And he also was very, anti segregation. Like whenever he would go into a hotel, he would actually make sure he was like, why are these guys, eating over there? I heard a story where they were talking about him, and he walks by and he sees it was Sammy Davis, and there was what was those two guys? There were two twins. I can't remember their names. Oh man, they were dancers. They used to dance amazingly. Can't remember their names, but they were like in a room and they were having their dinner, and they had to have their dinners in their because they weren't allowed. But he actually made a point. Oh, wait a minute, this is the wrong story. I'm sorry. Sinatra did do this in a hotel with his guys, but what I was just talking about was Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis saw this with Sammy Davis and these dancers, and he went to the hotel manager and he was just like, "Listen, if they're not allowed to eat in the room with everyone else, then tomorrow's show is going to be really, really rough because you're not going to have anybody on the stage." And they changed the policy right away. And Sinatra did the same thing. He would always push for Sammy Davis to go in through the front. They would have to go through the back and stuff and all this stuff. So Sinatra was very instrumental in making it accepted to many. So I was very happy about that when I heard that, because I saw a documentary years ago on that. But yeah, what can I say? I mean, you could talk so much about Sinatra because there's so many different facets to him. His personality was just so unique. His stage presence was, no one can do it. No one had that 60s concert. I think it was 68 or something. He had that concert in Madison Square Garden where he's like in the center and he walks out with a cigarette and a drink. He just walks out. And the whole place, and it's just Sinatra just standing there. There's no flash, there's no smoke, there's no lasers, no lights, no background dancers. It's just Sinatra with a, and he's just, how's everybody doing tonight? And the place is like, it's just like unbelievable. And this was already when he was established. This was 68. It wasn't like the young girls screaming. These were just people just taken by his presence. I don't know if we've had anyone with that type of stage presence, since Sinatra. I mean, you can say Elvis, but Elvis had the flash. Elvis had the jumpsuit. Elvis had the moves. Yeah, he was shaking. It was like completely different. Sinatra just did not have to do any of that. He just showed up and just blew the place away. Yeah. So he always was one of those guys that, for me, whatever he had it that and 1,000% more than like the average performer. As much as you'd want to say that we're going to get that again, I just find it's very difficult to just have a guy in a suit with a cigarette and a drink walk into the middle of 20,000 people and just capture them for.
How's everybody doing in that?
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Besides
not just
Elvis,
that, but I've seen him also like forget lyrics and stuff. And I don't mean in his older years, but even his young years. He was, and there was one part where he forgot the lyrics, and he was like, "Oh wait," he was like,
"Wait, that's wrong."
He just kind of shook it off, and everybody laughed. And he just he just started again, and it was like he didn't miss a beat, and there was just so much confidence flowing off of this guy. But anyway, that's just what I have to say. I don't have any detailed and statistical stuff. I just really loved what he was and what he was about. And there's stories about that people say that are negative stories, and there's a whole bunch of other books written and all that stuff. I got it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he was a perfect man. I'm saying that he, on the stage, was, to me, the epitome of presence and style. His phrasing, if you want to get into the musical element of it, you cannot beat the phrasing that Sinatra had. People are till this day listening to his records and trying to figure out how he made that run go from here to here, and then back up here effortlessly. You know what I mean? So till this day, no one can phrase like that. Those are records that people are going to be studying for the next couple hundred years. And even the aliens that come down, they should be down any minute. They're going to ask for Sinatra records.
We're waiting.
They're going to be blown away. So that's my spiel. Whoever wants to go next, Sean,
Sean,
right.
Take it, my boy. Take it.
Delegate it.
There's actually, to bounce off of what you said, like with Sinatra's stage presence, it is very important to differentiate, as you perfectly laid out, Sinatra the performer and Sinatra the person, because they are two different things. There are people who are a certain way on stage, and they act totally different in their personal life. And there's one person that I can think of besides, like, when you brought Elvis up with, you know, all his flashiness, and he was a very private guy, and
Very
he
shy guy.
didn't like enjoy. Yeah, he really didn't enjoy like having the fame. Like, he couldn't go to church anymore and just,
Right.
you know, enjoy a simple mass. But the other person I was thinking of when you were talking, I just read his out of print autobiography called "Wouldn't It Be Nice," was Brian Wilson, where in his later years he could go up on a stage, and this was during the time that he was under the treatment of Dr. Eugene Landy.
A criminal.
Yeah, a criminal. And he would go up, he'd be able to go up on stage, do nothing, and he'd just get thunderous applause for, you know, the music, the pure music that he put out. He could just stand there, and it would just last as long as he wanted, and he just, you know, stood there in awe inside, but he didn't show it on the outside. You know, he'd raise his hand and go like that. Yeah, but that's the only person I can think of besides Sinatra and Elvis that really had that kind of crowd reaction. And he didn't have much stage presence. He just stood there. But
well, I think
getting to
I think if I just jump on that real quick, I think what was, if I were to say there was a little bit of a difference, was, you know, Brian wrote masterpieces. He himself sat down at a piano and wrote
from his heart, pure.
Right. You know what I mean? And you know, Pet Sounds is probably one of the greatest records ever ever made.
Without Pet Sounds, there wouldn't be Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Pepper, yeah, it's just
that's what's credited as the inspiration.
Yeah, and such an influential guy. So I the difference is Sinatra had the presence, he had the great music behind him, but he didn't write a lot of them. I don't think he wrote anything ever. You know what I mean? He was just able to
people plugged songs. They just plugged songs to him.
Yeah, and he would just be able to interpret songs better than anyone else of that genre. You know,
he's within the same. He's within the same vein as Elvis, because Elvis did the same thing. A lot of people credit Elvis for making their songs popular and doing it better than the original.
Right, like Hound Dog, you know, that was out years before, and
Mama Thornton.
Yeah, Mama Thornton, right? And you know, so that was a good deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting back to the 40s, from my digression, it was a very, very rough decade. Another rough decade, sad to say, given that the 20s were so roaring, and then we had the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl and unemployment, and it was just downers all around for the United States. But now worldwide, now the big story of the 40s, obviously, and everything revolving around the 40s culturally, was spurred on by World War II. You know, September of 39 to September of 45. I think it was September 1st of 39 to September 2nd of 1945. It was the deadliest military conflict of all time. It's estimated that 70 to 85 million casualties occurred in World War II. Broken down, it's estimated 15 million battle deaths, 25 million battle wounds, and 45 million civilian deaths worldwide. Europe was in tatters. Japan, they got bombed. And obviously, it's just very rough all around everywhere. The United States and the United Kingdom, thinking of the globalized society that we live in today, given how important that lifestyle is, to think about the transmission of how COVID-19 got to the way, it was, how quickly it transmitted itself everywhere. The United States and the United Kingdom set up this system that we know today and live in, based on the international political idea of liberalism, not what we Americans know as liberalism, what international politicians know as liberalism. It's two separate things.
Right.
But it was established at the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, July 1st to July 22nd. So we're right in the middle of that time frame. What is it, 76 years later, being affected by this exact event, because this person, John Maynard Keynes, he was a British economic minister, and one of the most important economic minds of the 20th century. He established Keynesian liberalism, which is not free market capitalism. It is capitalism with a lot of government regulation attached to it, because he did not trust laissez-faire economics after what happened with the world economy in the 30s. And with the United States economic minister, they formed these three important organizations that watch over everything that we know today: the International Monetary Fund, the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, also known as the World Bank, and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which is now known as the World Trade Organization. It was replaced by the World Trade Organization because it wasn't updating to the times in the 90s with intellectual rights. So these three organizations really determine they really determine most of our lifestyle today, between consumers and producers and supply chains, and which countries get preferential treatment, China, and which don't. Sorry about that, Zuckerberg. But some important figures in this time, obviously, are FDR, and then Harry Truman, who made one of the most important decisions of all time, which I will get to. Winston Churchill in the United Kingdom, Joseph Stalin in the Soviet Union, Hitler in Germany, Mussolini in Italy, and Emperor Hirohito in Japan. Truman, he dropped the atomic bomb, 2 atomic bombs, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6th and August 9th of 1945, effectively ending World War II. And there were 2 reasons for him to do that. They were considering, the United States military was considering an invasion of Japan, which would have cost a lot of not only Japanese lives, but also American lives. So he had that on his shoulders. Imagine having so many deaths on top of the deaths that already happened in the Western theater on your hands.
Crazy.
And then there was a race with Russia. We're pretty sure Stalin would have liked to have Japan and a way to get to the United States besides through Alaska. Japan, it would have been a mess. So Truman, he came into the Oval Office as a vice president, and he learned that FDR had died midterm. And he didn't even know that the atomic bomb was being made. He only figured that out when he became the president of the United States. Imagine today, in our era of social media and all the leaks and everybody in government now leaking to everybody.
Yeah.
Imagine
It'll be on Facebook. Like,
it would be on Facebook, and
Right.
everybody would be like, "They're gonna drop a bomb on somebody! Oh my
it'll
god!"
be all over Twitter, and then
But
everyone will call
yeah.
everyone conspiracy theories until it happens.
And yeah, and after World War II, we know what happens after the Cold War effectively began after World War II happened between the United States and Russia, and NATO was formed in 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was created to protect against communism and the Russian influence in the European sphere. Now, what the heck does this have to do with music, you may be asking after I got all political? So, music is all about transmission. And like World War I, some music was transmitted, some musical traditions were transmitted as soldiers and civilians migrated across the European theater. The same happened here, but at a greater rate, because we had more technology, we had an actual American sound. We never really had our own sound, but
Mhm.
you know, jazz, like you said, John, was really like our national music identity. That was a part of our culture, and it was really proliferated during the 40s, during World War II, and after. Like, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Bob Hope, he went and entertained overseas in the 40s for the troops in World War II.
Yeah.
American music flourished. America became the world's superpower and willfully accepted its role as like a hegemon, the best, the top country in all of the world. Record players, their prices dipped, allowing consumers to control more of what they listen to. If you have more money to spend, now you can spend it on different things. That's how economics work.
Oh,
So yeah, so imagine cutting taxes and giving people more money to spend and put into the economy.
wow.
But yeah, so they have more money, so they're going to spend more money on records, and that's what they do. So they can better dictate by their listening patterns what trend the industry is going towards. And they can really enjoy the music with better fidelity. You know, there was better sound quality. There was no better sound quality than in the 40s, you know, up to that point.
Right.
But there was better fidelity. Now, 1948, getting into technology. Very important year. Muddy Waters, Chicago. The song is I Can't Be Satisfied. In the recording session, he discovered a very important effect that Tommy and Andres love to use a lot, and they use it to drown my voice out when I'm talking to them, and it's called distortion.
Oh, shit.
So distortion was discovered. It was discovered in 1948. It didn't really come into a full effect until the first rock and roll record was recorded in the 50s, but we'll get to that. I'm not going to give spoilers. But the first rock and roll record happened in the 50s for those who are uncultured. I mean, uneducated. I mean, don't know. But
John being brutal.
There were yeah. So there were two very important inventions in the late 40s that really characterized like the 50s style and 50s life: distortion with rock and roll,
and Pez dispenser.
Pez dispensers.
Oh, it wasn't?
And,
no.
And the jukebox. The jukebox was invented in October of 1948, October 30th.
Now you said 48. Now, didn't the Roswell crash happen in 47?
Let's actually check that. I believe you're right, but
I'm not saying it. I'm just telling you. I'm just saying. 47.
Yes, 47 in Roswell, New Mexico.
And
The
then
United
suddenly
States Army Air
48,
Force
we got
balloon crash.
distortion. I think the
Yeah,
aliens came down and
yeah,
handed us the boss pedal.
yeah. I think that's what happened. Now imagine think of what they did for computers. Alienware. Maybe there's something there.
Yeah. Well, also the
Yeah.
microwave came out shortly right after that.
But
And
yeah,
that was
look,
like
look, look,
a crazy thing.
look at all this stuff, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, the all in all, the 40s, it was a rough decade. There was boycotts for radio stations. They weren't able to play contemporary music. They had to stick to a talk show format. And obviously that stopped the spread of this new music to a certain extent. But there was just so much music out there. There was so much swing, jazz, and everything in
So,
between.
are you saying that the radio stations were boycotting the music, that they didn't want the music to get out because they thought the music was I don't know, evil or something? Or was it that they just didn't feel that the music would be attract anyone?
Well, I'm thinking along the lines of, not to get too far ahead, but like what happened with McCarthyism and like
Right.
music that might not have been culturally deemed fit for the times. So
Right.
I'm thinking it was more of a boycott along those lines, along
Yeah.
like political lines, maybe.
Wow, that's interesting.
But most music, like during this time, continued on the path of purity, like during the 30s. It was romantic, it was Americana, and it was longing for the homeland because there were all these Americans that got drafted and they wanted to go home. So there was a lot of music that was reflecting that. You know, to get into what Tommy's going to talk about, like you said, Tommy, there's a lot of recognizable songs that are for the holidays, and a lot of themes behind these songs are, a lot of them are longing, and a lot of people, like, even before Thanksgiving, they like to turn on their Christmas music like around Halloween and listen to it and get into like depressing vibes because they listen to the lyrics, and
Yeah.
it just tears at the heartstrings because it's like so pure, and the chord changes are like so beautiful and longing, you
Yeah.
know.
I think longing is the perfect word. I think that's what those songs from that, especially the holiday songs, they were just always looking for a certain to try to recapture an emotion, something they felt, something that they, or to try to get there, even for the first time, to try to get somewhere. And I think when you listen to a lot of those songs, it's very apparent that that was what was going on with the whole country, was trying to find a better, just to feel better, and longing for that, for whatever was missing, which I think it bled into the 50s, which was, then it seems like they found it for a little while there.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Sean, I didn't mean to cut you off.
All right, I have one last thing to wrap it up. So, as I said, 40s, they were tumultuous, but a lot of pure music. The globalized society that we live in today, the seeds were planted during the 40s. And a lot of the the two main technological discoveries that I talked about, possibly as a result of the Roswell crash, as per John Henry Soto 2020. They defined the 50s and really set the tone for what life was going to be like for like the 50s, the 60s, and onward. It was still a very influential decade, even though there weren't a lot of like huge, like a huge quantity of technological discoveries.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much, Mr. BreakTime.
I'm done.
Mr. BreakTime, aka Sean. Switched it. Okay, Tommy, what you got for us? Can't hear you.
Tommy, what happened to your There you go.
These headphones, they're annoying. Anyway, it's time for the music man to give you some music. So actually, we'll save this one for last because it's probably the biggest one to come out of it. So we'll start from some kind of sort of recognizable songs, then we'll go up from there. So one of which I'm going to start with is When You Wish Upon a Star. Can anybody tell me where that one's from?
Really? That's from a Disney something, isn't it?
Ooh.
Let me just give you a quick hint. Pinocchio.
Right. I know
And it was written actually by Lai Harline and Ned Washington for the movie, of course, and sung by Cliff Edwards, who it was in the movie. You see Jiminy Cricket singing it. That's Cliff Edwards singing, of course.
Yeah.
But another one was Chattanooga Choo Choo, which is another one from the 40s, from 1941.
Train songs.
And I've
had
trying to think of how.
I
Let's
don't
see.
remember that.
I'm trying to think of how to sing this, but anyway,
Right,
you can look it up. I was trying to think of how to sing it because I know how it goes, but like it's hard to.
You might not want to do that.
Yeah, and we don't want to do it anyway because that's not the point. But it was originally written by Matt Gordon and composed by Harry Warren. Now, if there's any Glenn Miller fans out there,
Oh yeah.
it was actually made famous by Glenn Miller and his orchestra in this year, 1941. And something interesting I found out that Barry Manilow, out of all people, covered this song on his 1994 album Singing with the Big Bands.
Ah.
Something I never knew. I don't know if you guys ever knew it, but it happened. And I also found out.
Here's Chattanooga Choo Choo.
Give it a little taste. Give it a little taste.
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. This is like
I think there's supposed to be vocals in there somewhere, but
yeah, of course. Yeah.
but when you really think
There's
somebody
lyrics to this
recognize
song,
it,
though. There are lyrics.
Chattanooga.
Yeah.
I've actually, it's a funny quick story. I've actually heard that song while watching a documentary about this famous
Train?
steam locomotive, from England called the Flying Scotsman, and that song was featured in there. So it's pretty funny. I was like, oh, that was from the 40s? Yeah, makes sense.
Tommy's a real
anyway.
fan, by the way.
And
To all
I'm
the
a
real
rock
fans
fan.
out there.
Yeah.
You're
And one more note about this song.
Train watcher.
Interestingly enough, if you know Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and his Comets,
Sure.
it was actually recorded by them as a single in 1954 later on. So it was actually pretty interesting that I found that out.
Oh, I didn't know
Another
that.
one. Now we're going to get to some Christmas songs now. Now the rest is probably going to be mostly Christmas songs. First of which, never knew it was actually from the 40s. From the 40s.
Tell us, Tom.
Is Sleigh Ride is one. That's
Sleigh
one
Ride?
song.
What song is that? Sleigh Ride.
It's like,
Oh.
come on, John.
I didn't know that. I didn't really know that that's what it was called.
Yeah, it's called, well,
That's one of those songs that
there
you
is a
just
version
hear
with
every
lyrics.
year.
I mean, there's one without, and then there's one
Stay
with.
right together with you.
So I think there's also an instrumental, but there's also one with lyrics. But anyway, another one. Moving on. Another one. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by Gene Autry. Now,
Gene
interestingly enough,
Was
the
that for
song
the?
was.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say, was that for the claymation Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
I think that came later.
That came later.
If
Okay.
I'm not mistaken.
All right. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Comment down below.
Continue with what
Anyway.
you do know, Tommy.
Yeah.
And I'll shut up.
First song. So it was actually first sung by crooner Harry Brannon for WOR to promote the Gene Autry Classic. So he used it to promote the song, which came out in 1949.
Wow.
Now, we're almost getting to the number one Christmas song of all time, and
I
from
know it.
this time period.
Yeah.
Number 3 going on to this list is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, which has been covered by Frank Sinatra. I have to say that right away because it's going to be said. So it has been covered by him.
He
Best
beat
version.
you to it, John.
Best version. right? Best version, right?
I,
Uh,
not sure. Yeah, you know what?
probably is the best version. I don't know.
You know that's such a beautiful song. I mean, the melodically is just such an incredible
Mhm.
song. Even chord wise, it's got some
Yeah,
nice. It got some chord changes in there, key changes in there. Also, it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. So whenever you hear
yeah,
it, it's just a nice song. So it doesn't really matter who sings it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, I just
Yeah,
think it's a
the
beautiful song.
way the way
yeah. Either way,
that it weaves like in its contour is just like
Yeah,
so smooth, and
it is.
you know
Mhm.
It
it's
reminds
just
me.
so emotional.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of like Yesterday, the Beatles, because that's a song that you can also just have. Like I remember, and I'm just gonna digress a second, but I remember walking down Broadway once when I was fairly young, and there was a guy playing on
On
the street.
Broadway.
Yeah, I was walking on Broadway, New York City. Not, I don't mean here near Judicki's. I'm talking about New
If
York City.
anybody wants to, no, we'll do that later. Go ahead.
yeah. We'll do it at the end, Sean.
Yeah, and I was
Shush.
around 47th Street and Broadway, and I'm walking down, and this guy was with the guitar. He was like busking out in front of a building there, and it was very clear. He had a really nice loud setup. He was really hooked up pretty well, and he started singing Yesterday, and it was like, and it was the first. I've heard the song a million times, but it was the first time that I sat there and I thought, damn, this is like one of the greatest songs ever written. Because he sang it really, really well, and
Yeah,
that's one of those songs like "Have Yourself a
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas." It's just a beautiful melody.
Yeah, it's like one of those few songs that when you hear the melody, you could just like, or you play the chords, you could hear like
Yeah,
the melody under it, like a phantom melody. It's
that's
just
right.
always there.
It's
Mhm.
always there. You're right. You're right. That's amazing when that happens. So cool. Cool, Tommy. Sorry, we just
Sorry. By the way, just for a quick second to go back to Rudolph. It actually,
yeah, back to
John,
Rudolph.
the television program, or the movie, whatever, came out in 1964. So that was a few
Oh wow,
years after the song came out.
I remember that.
But now back to Have Yourself a Merry Christopher. Quick second. It was written by Hugh Martin and Ralph Blaine, and it was actually introduced by Judy Garland in the film Meet Me in St. Louis.
Seriously,
Yeah,
I had no
actually,
idea.
not film, musical. Sorry,
The musical, yeah. Well, it was a film too,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, it probably.
Yeah. No, it was.
yeah,
It was okay. It was. Let's just
Yeah,
say
yeah, yeah. It was a film.
that. Let's just say that. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a-
Anyway,
yeah, I didn't know that. Wow,
yeah.
that's cool.
So
Interesting.
number 2 Christmas song and song on the list is Nat King Cole, the Christmas song,
Ah,
first recorded in 1946, but it was recorded again later on. The version we hear now was from the 60s, not
was
the
that written
original.
by? Was that Mel Torme by any chance?
Um, no, it was written by actually no, wait. It was written by Burke and Van Helsing
Oh,
in 1945. I don't know how to pronounce that last name.
it's actually written by Robert Wells and Mel Torme. Yeah, it was written during the summer.
Oh, was it? No,
Nice.
it's not what I found. Anyway,
Best
moving
time to
on.
write Christmas songs.
Moving on. Now we're at the top.
That was Billy Joel.
Yeah. Now we're at the top of the
Moving
top Christmas song.
That's moving out. Sorry, go
Can
ahead.
anybody guess what it is?
I think I can.
Yeah,
It is Jingle Bells. No, Have Yourself a Merry Silent Night. No, that was before.
It's the
I'll
color
give you-
of my walls.
White Christmas. White Christmas. Was it
Yes.
White Christmas?
Yeah, White Christmas.
It was. I thought we spoke about
Which is not only just the number one Christmas song, is one of the best-selling singles of all time. That sold
Yeah.
over
It is
50 million copies worldwide.
the best-selling release of all time.
Yeah, the
Right.
best-selling release.
Now, who wrote that?
You know, got to write that note down. Who wrote the song?
All right,
I know it wasn't Bing Crosby, but his name's at the
it wasn't-
top
I
of
don't
my
know
head.
it. Because it's sung in 2 movies. It's sung in
Yeah.
It's Irving Berlin. That's who I thought it
yeah,
was.
it's Irving Berlin.
Oh,
Oh,
is
that's right.
Yeah.
The Irving Berlin. It was sung in 2 movies. It's sung in the first one called something Holiday. It was a black and white film, Bing Crosby, and that's where he first
Oh,
produced that film,
Holiday Inn, I think.
Holiday
It
Inn.
was. Yeah.
Which for some reason I actually own that film. Don't ask me how I got it, but I actually own the DVD of that. But anyway,
How'd you get it,
and
John?
then it was resung in the film White Christmas, where it was
Yeah.
Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye and Rosemary Clooney and Vera I forgot her name, Vera something,
Vera,
Vance,
Chuck, and Dave.
Vera Vance. And that's actually one of my favorite films too. I love that film. That was a really great film, White Christmas. I watch
Oh,
it every
yeah.
year. I've even had my kids watch it because it's a good one. She likes the two sisters when they do the sisters. Anyway, all right. So
Now, Tommy.
Yeah.
very good,
to
Tommy.
bounce
Thank
off
you.
of-
You're welcome, John.
yeah, very good.
And thank you, John.
To
Go ahead.
bounce off of White Christmas and its artists, Bing Crosby, Sinatra wasn't the only, big artist of the 40s, but Bing Crosby, he really had his cake and he ate it during the 40s.
Yeah.
He was the best charting artist of the 40s.
Oh, yeah.
He sold billions
In total,
of
yeah,
records.
billions, yeah.
And he has 3 stars on the Hollywood
Walk of Fame.
Walk of Fame.
Yeah. One of the things about Bing Crosby is because there's just been so much said about his home life and just his behavior towards his kids and his wives that I always find it, and it's probably, I shouldn't be this way. I think it's just I don't think, I know that it's a flaw on my part, but sometimes like I'll hear him perform and that will affect me. You know what I mean? Like, because, he did, whether it was true or not, when enough people say something written in enough books and stuff like that, there is some sort of truth to it. Nothing would be written if you just never did that. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to write 10 books about you that say basically the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of issues with that, and I feel bad because such a great singer, and I watched his film, like I told you, White Christmas, one of my favorite films, and he was great in it. He's also an Academy Award winner, I believe, right? He played a priest. He played a priest in this film, and a great film. I've seen it. It was a beautiful film, and so I actually like his work. But there are times it's sort of like watching a Bill Cosby routine today.
Mhm.
It's like so freaking brilliant, for the time. And I wasn't a huge Bill Cosby fan. I didn't really think he was that funny. I'm sorry if anybody's gonna get completely offended, but I didn't think he was that funny. I thought he was funny when he did the Noah routine. I don't know if you guys remember that, but if he has this routine on one of his records where he talks about Noah building the ark and everybody making fun of him and stuff. And he's like, "What are you doing? I'm building an ark." Yeah, all right, whatever. It's kind of funny when he does that routine, but it's like seeing anything now just is kind of like it's been so tainted, So I think that's what it is for me. I think as a father, you know what I mean, as a father who loves his kids, to death and would do anything for them. Sometimes you hear things like that about anybody, a man or a woman, and you just I lose a little bit of respect for them. Hence, it kind of for me, it taints the art, which is not good. I really should look beyond it because he did create great art also, and I think the art was his saving grace. You know what I mean? It's like for whatever reason,
It's the same way I feel like when I listen to John Lennon or Brian Wilson, because there's been a lot of stuff written about the both of them on various issues. Obviously, everybody knows about. I don't know how many people know about it, but John and his first marriage with Cynthia Lennon was not the best. A lot of people have contended that, and it, like you said, if people are saying the same thing about this person, and a lot of people are saying it's got to be true, at least there is some degree of truth to it. That John was abusive, and he left his first son, Julian,
Right.
like in the lurch. And there was a lot of, unfair like treatment towards them compared to what ended up happening with Yoko and Sean. And there's that whole legal thing between Julian and Yoko about like royalties and rights and history, but
Yeah.
behind Julian's father, who he loved, even though he wasn't given the best childhood. And Brian Wilson, he had depression and schizophrenia and a bunch of other things, but you got to separate the person from the art, like you said.
Right.
And
it's hard.
it's a hard thing.
Yeah. I've met Sean Lennon. I worked when I was managing one of the Fufu health clubs. Him and his girlfriend, who used to walk around half naked, I used to have to constantly tell her to put clothes on because she would hurt me. But the other members would come into my office and be like, "Excuse me, she's walking around naked again, John. Can you handle that?"
Like father, like son.
I would have to go handle her because she was beautiful. And
yeah, he learned that from John.
Yeah, he definitely learned that one.
Yeah, so they were kind of but Sean was a really, really nice guy. Sean was a very, very nice guy. He was very down to earth. He would talk to all of us. He would sit in the cafe. Elvis Costello would also sit in the cafe and talk to us. And you get to you feel also from Sean in particular that he did have a strange life. You know what I mean? It's like you can't talk to him and think that he's not like, I'm not saying that he was normal. I'm saying he was nice, but he couldn't be normal. I mean, he was John Lennon and Yoko Ono's son. You know what I mean? And he was the one that got the
He was like the prize son. Yeah.
He was like the guy,
Julian was the forgotten one.
Right.
So,
and Julian, I've seen it
it wasn't his fault that he was born into it. That's just what happened.
And Julian I've seen him in interviews, and he seems like a really, really down to earth guy, really cool guy. And he's put out some really good music too, by the way. He's
a great performer.
He has put out some really great music. It's hard when you're I mean, look who your dad is. You know what I mean? It's just like, what are you going to do? It's like, you just go out and do the best you can. It's very difficult to have a father that famous and be able to I think, who did it really well. I mean, I know we're kind of moving into different areas now, but
I think somehow we'll get back to it.
Yeah, we'll get back somehow. But I do think that Bob Dylan's son, Jacob, I think he's actually managed to really put a little mark for himself, because he's a very unique player. And although you can see, you see Bob all over him, you see the face, and now that he's older, he's looking more and more like Bob. But you can really kind of get the idea that he's actually making his own path, which is not easy, when your dad is like, Bob Dylan. But anyway, so just getting back to Bing Crosby again, he definitely was a powerhouse during that era, and there's no doubt, and it's not even to take anything away from him. I think it's just a personal thing for each individual. When I listen to White Christmas, I listen to White Christmas. You know what I mean? And I don't think that song anyone has sang better than Bing Crosby. You know what I mean?
You're just hearing the humanity of it. And if anybody can project their own humanity and like the problem with like production today and all that, not to bang, production and songwriting and all that, but the problem with production today is there's so much inauthenticity to it that like these songs, getting back to the purity aspect, the way that these artists are able to put themselves and put imperfection and purity into it and make beautiful art, that is what affects the human condition and what we hear and how we perceive it.
And to mention the longing part again that we talked about earlier, I mean, there is no song that oozes awning more, oozes what am I trying to say?
I don't know, John.
I guess it personifies
to change languages.
It personifies longfulness, like just being
longing.
forlorn.
That's what I was trying to say, longing. it oozes longing. That's what I was trying to say. But that song definitely does, and I think it might have a lot to do with the performer. I think he's a guy that was probably having some issues. He wasn't, his voice is very, very. I'm dreaming of very, very like. It just feels that way. That is a kind of a sad, and you just feel a sadness to it. I mean, there are performers that you can hear their voice. I think Karen Carpenter is one where you hear her voice and you just feel the sadness. Paul
Elvis was
Williams,
the same way.
yeah, and Paul Williams, who's actually it's actually somebody who I know, a friend of mine. But if you listen to his earliest songs, he has a song called Loneliness. If you hear that song, man, you will just be bawling, because it's like it just completely it captures exactly what the song is called, Loneliness, and the voice and the way he sang it and everything, it just completely so I think that there's not many times in history where a performer, an emotion, a melody come together and capture it all perfectly. I mean, that song is one, and it shows that it's one because it's the most famous song in the history of the planet. And it's just, what else can you say other than that? I mean, it's been probably covered in every language,
Yeah.
What else is there to say?
Encanto de la nieve cayendo.
Yeah, and John, to bounce off of what you said, to go to another song, like whenever I hear the Christmas song, and I hear we're hearing, you said we're hearing the '60s version of it, right, Tommy, on the radio?
Yes.
So,
Is that
so
Jack,
is that
Jack Frost nibbling that song? Jack
Yeah, no.
Frost.
Wait, which one was it again?
chestnuts roasting on an
Christmas
open
one,
fire.
yeah.
Jack Frost.
I couldn't remember what song you're talking about.
Chestnuts.
Okay, yeah, that's the one.
So
I know it.
The opening, the opening always gets me, and like whenever the strings are playing, it's just like it also happens with orchestration, like the
Yeah.
way that an instrumentalist plays their instrument, and
Yeah.
it was the perfect storm on that song with having Nat King Cole and like a reassuring,
Yeah.
voice, and his calmness in the way that he does it, plus the orchestration on it. It just is the perfect formula, and it's longing. The way that they play is longing.
Yeah. I guess the word for today is
It's our buzzword.
longing.
Yes.
Sponsored by the word.
Ah, he said the word of the day.
This show has been brought to
You
you
win a
by
cake
the
from
word
Judiki.
longing.
Yeah, so it doesn't only happen with vocals. It happens with the instrumental performance.
Piece.
Not to get ahead of ourselves, but George Harrison
Stop
was
getting
a great,
ahead of yourself.
was a great performer in that aspect when he came up with solos. But we'll get to that, and that will be on the next music makers,
Right.
Whenever that is.
Although we are going to get into the Beatles on Saturday.
Oh,
yes,
boy.
we will be
with Mr. BreakTime.
Mr. Beatle historian over here.
Yeah, so that's gonna be fun. All right, guys, it's about an hour. We seem to always kind of know how to wrap things up. We know we're becoming almost
We're
like
good at this.
professionals at this.
We're professionals.
We professionals. Of course, I'm over here going Jack Frost nipping at mine. Wait, that's not right.
Oh, whoa,
Just
hey,
roasting on an open fire.
Family friendly.
Jack Frost nipping at your nose.
Not an open fire. Ouch.
Parody version.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool, guys. So as always, have a great evening. I'm gonna thank you everybody who's watching.
You can
as
follow
always,
us.
guys, if you do like these shows, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the little bell, and share it. We're having a lot of fun. Also, anybody that's out there listening and you want to come on as a guest, if you don't have to be a musician, but you have to know about music, obviously. So if you know a lot about music in a certain area let us know. Send me a message. You can always email me at right here and email me, and we will schedule you to come in on a music makers evening, and we will be able to talk about music. and we'd love to hear from you. So
Yeah. Follow us
Cool.
at BreakTime Live NJ across all platforms. And email johnhenrysoto@gmail.com. You'll get a cake from Jadicki, sign with your name on it. If you're a girl, we'll give you a kiss. If you're not, a minor. Thank you.
that's
Good night.
right.
You can order my autobiography.
That's going to be released in
2064.
2064.
Yeah, whatever.
2064.
In coordination with the
Copies now.
2064 reunion tour.
Yep. Pre-order it now today on Amazon. Not really, folks. Just in case.
Or wherever
You can buy stuff.
Barnes and Noble,
Back then,
Amazon.
it's not going to be
Hey, I don't care. You can order it.
2064 is going to be like, oh, you're interested in that book? Zzz. You know, it's going to get buzzed into your brain.
If it flops, you can go to the clearance section of your Cortex, whatever Cortex that'll be a part of in 2064.
Hold on, it's in here somewhere.
Anywho.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you all tomorrow
Stay
night.
safe, stay healthy, and rock on.
Yeah, tomorrow night I have Jessica Sterling is the next on JHS interview. So see you tomorrow. And as always,